Hey, what are you at, boys? My name is Troy.
And I'm Mike.
And welcome back to Facility D20. This is going to be another video where we talk about D&D encounters, and this time we do the classic dungeon crawl. So this was a kind of like a multiple tier situation here. We had a few things going on. We had the ship sailed up on an island. There was some sand dunes. There was the island itself. There was it was the old ruins that you came upon. Inside of that, there was a complex, and then under that again was basically a maze.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about all those 3 or 4 situations, and I'm going to take you guys in and show you this video, and let you guys see what we had set up and built on the table. So this is a simple setup I use. These are some 3D printed dungeon tiles. I actually designed these myself and printed them off. They're designed to match the Dwarven Forge stuff. Most of the scatter terrain comes from Dungeon Crate, a Kickstarter I backed a while back. Some LED tea lights built into the 3D printed blocks. Wired in. So the idea here was just to have a big open room, and every so many rounds in the fight I had a different bad guy come in from each of these rooms, and the party also explored and opened some of these doors as the fight progressed. And I like to just put it on this Realm of Battle game tile. That way I can just pick it up and place it on the table and hide it out of sight until it's needed. And of course I had each of these rooms covered up with a piece of paper until they were revealed. Okay, so basically I was running Isle of the Abbey out of Ghost of Saltmarsh. Not very often I actually got to run these modules, but I ran this one almost in full. The first situation we came up on was the sand dunes, and here it wasn't so much as your traditional combat map as what it was, acted more like a puzzle. So I put a big piece of paper down on the table, and we used 1 mini as a token, and the guys rolled a wisdom check.
It was a survival check.
Survival check, yeah. Yep. And whatever you passed it by was how many steps you got to move, which was a slight change from the rules in the book. The rules in the book was just a wisdom check, and you moved that many. So if you rolled 15, you would have moved 15 spaces. I was like, well,
we get through it.
You get through in one roll.
1 or 2 choices.
Right? So I said, I'll set a DC at low, and then how many you pass it by is how many steps. So I thought this was going to take a long time, because there was, as you see on the map, each one of those numbers represented an amount of skeletons
that were in each block. So we had to pretty much maneuver our way around a block blindly because we didn't know we were going to encounter any. So luckily we took the ship's navigator, and who had pretty good high survival score, and we managed to get through the dunes faster than anticipated, I would say.
Yep, much faster. I thought there was going to be no way that they're going to get through this. It's going to be a whole session. But like, I think you landed on 1 set of skeletons.
That was it.
That was it. And then the rest of it, you just like straight through the perfect path.
Yeah,
like,
we like beautiful minded our way through it.
You did. I was like, can they fucking see over my DM screen? Like, what's going on here? I couldn't believe it. There's even a couple of points where like, we're going to go block left or block right. And I'm like, there's 16 skeletons on it now. We're going to go this way. And they missed them totally. And I'm like, what is happening?
When you look at the mountains, our first, the map, there was like mountains or dunes on them. And our first strategy when we were moving through was like, no, we're not going to step on any dunes at all. That's definitely where they all are. And we're like, wait, no, this is definitely just a minesweeper board. And that's just there for the cover.
Yeah, you know what? Minesweeper is a good way to put it. That's what it was like. So they only stepped on one group of skeletons, and that was like right at the first of
I
it.
think it was like 9 of them.
Yeah, and I basically use all skeleton swarms because you guys were such a high level, and we were doing a theater to mine. I just envisioned what I tried to do is like make you feel like you were like waist deep in skeletons, half the skeletons, parts of skeletons, just kind of bogging you down.
Yeah, well, it was fun too because we had the monk shining because all his bludgeoning damage, just busting stuff up. I managed to polymorph the bard into a giant crab so that he could fend him off. He fell in love with that form after that crawl.
He did, yeah, that crab.
And we rode him all the way pretty much to the end.
To the end, yeah. And it was a lot of fun and got through a lot faster. And then, of course, they got up on the island itself, and the island was pretty empty. And the idea was that the sand dunes protected on one side, the rest of the island was a rocky cliff face, and on the other end of the island was Captain Rengray's undead fleet.
Yeah.
So that was well protected. So the only way through the island was through the dunes. And the ruins itself was never really meant to be nothing there. It was just kind of meant for you guys to tiptoe up around and to sort through. And I believe it was a shrine to Loth.
Yeah.
It was what it was before it got destroyed. You guys never really kind of found that background out and that whole connection, but
no, we never did. Well, I don't think we really were looking for that.
No.
We knew we were looking for this thing for the Rengrave that we had to defeat, and the only way for him to die is to find this object in the crypt and destroy it.
Yeah, which was he was a lich, so it was a phylactery.
Yeah, it was his phylactery.
So after that, the guys slipped underground and they went into this kind of your traditional dungeon crawl with one big room and multiple rooms around it. They got the surprise round on 3 or 4 undead gladiators down there.
Yeah, those poor gladiators. They're like loaded up with like 3-4 attacks each, and there's only 3 of them at the table. And when you consider how big our party is and how big of a challenge 3 monsters has to be for that,
yeah.
So they got to be able to put out some numbers. Unfortunately for them, on the surprise round, I managed to get a slow off on 2 of them, and the surprise round killed the 3rd one.
It did, yeah. It was those surprise rounds in D&D are absolutely brutal. Like when the whole party can like get one go right off the hop, it it wipes them. So that's where we ended up ending that first session. Yeah. And while that happened, I run another D&D game for another group who are currently in hell. And that group used a banishment spell to cast one of their own party members out of hell for like 60 seconds to try to just grab anything they can and bring back down because they had no food, no water, nothing. So long story short, when it happened, I recorded them on my cell phone and I texted it to this group. And I said, okay, guys, remember when you were in that underground complex where we left off the last session? They're like, yep. I'm like, well, this happens. And I played the video.
Help! Please, we've been banished to hell. We only have 60 seconds. We need all the food and water you can give to us. Please, quick.
For your help, you can come with us, hopefully.
We need provisions. We are trying to get out of hell. We've been banished. We have 60 seconds. Please, a cask of water, ale, weapons, food, whatever you can give us to take back. We probably have 45 seconds right now.
You got 30 seconds.
I look around the room. Is there anything, obviously, that I can just grab in my arms?
There's some rotting food on the table, and there's some dead skeletons on the floor.
There's no, can I, like, search the bodies? Can I see if there's, like, water skins?
Jump off the table and roll a search right quick. As you see, Veda jumps off the table. They're all kind of stunned and looking at you, and they're kind of, like, wondering who you are.
Yeah, with that 30 seconds, I turn heel. There's nothing in the room. I kick the door open. I go to the next possible door. I'm frantically searching for a cask of anything, liquid.
Okay, so Veda, you do pull up some rotten apples. One with a worm and an arrow in it. And you pull up some old water skins that are half full. You get a half full water skin and 2 apples. And Corvex, did you introduce who you were, or?
Oh, we didn't say anything. All we just said was we're in desperate need of help. We'll find you and we'll pay you back. But right now, we need help. And with that, I turned around and kicked the door. Man, I'm looking for as many rooms as possible in my 30 seconds to grab any casks I can find.
And I'm like, what do you do? So the fun part was throughout the last couple of years, these two campaigns have been running in the same world at the same time and been paralleling each other. So there's been a few slight crossovers, and like one group knows about the other group, but they haven't really had that connection.
We were in our group was in a inn in Luskin, and we found a painting of their group, which is named the Wu-Tang Pips.
Wu-Tang Pips.
And they found I can't remember what the painting was exactly. I think it was they were defeating a blue dragon.
Yes, that's right.
And so there was this big depiction of this battle with all their members in it and this painting. So we're like, oh, that's pretty cool. And in our campaign, we are a bunch of rum runners. So we've now employed multiple people to distribute our booze across the Sword Coast and inland.
For months and months now.
Yes.
So they're trapped in hell, and they were at a party when it happened. And what happened was they just grabbed what was on the table, so they just ended up going to hell with like 6 bottles of sloppy walrus ale. So that's all they're in hell with. So it was really fun to kind of do that crossover. Kind of came of spurred the moment, but it was pretty cool. But the worst thing was the other group kicked in a door looking for supplies. So when we started your session back up again, all the other doors and all this ruckus caused everybody to come out. Yeah. So we had a pile of gladiators and a couple of spellcasters. And basically what I did was like, okay, every round I was going to open another door.
Yeah.
And I was going to try to overwhelm them with bad guys. But you guys just targeted those spellcasters right off the hop.
If anybody casts a spell, it doesn't matter if it's a cantrip, it doesn't matter. If an enemy casts a spell against our group, it's like they just got a big target on their forehead.
Yeah.
It's like the bard, first thing the bard does is a counterspell. And then all of a sudden, like, the warlock starts shooting eldritch blasts at it, hexes it right away. The rogue sharpshooter sneak attacks it.
Yeah.
The monk will stunning strike it.
And everybody's like disengaged. Yeah. Run over there to do this.
We were all fighting separate things, and as soon as we heard the words "he casts a spell," we all just like nope, turned and ran at him.
And then another spellcaster came out, and he got nope right off the hop. But so they kind of made short work of that first dungeon crawl. It was a lot of fun. It was your 3D printed dungeon tiles that was built. And the idea there was to just make you feel like you were in this old complex that was there for a while.
It's another important thing about that crawl too was it shows the importance of how having a distinguished mini on for an enemy, even though it could just be a generic enemy, makes a difference. Yeah. One of the zombies that Troy was using had a scuba helmet on there. Yeah. And we're like, there's something going on with that scuba helmet zombie. We dropped everything and we beat him up. It could have just, it was probably just a generic zombie.
Yeah,
he just had that model for it. But that zombie got it. There was like a spellcaster and a captain in that room. And we're like, no, there's something going on with that scuba hat.
Scuba Steve is getting it. So when you're running dungeon tiles like that and you got the 3D rooms, sometimes it's difficult to hide the room. So what I like to do is just cut pieces of paper and fit them over the top of the rooms. And that way, you open a door, you can reveal it piece of paper at a time. Yeah. And all those squares are 1 inches. So when you're doing dungeons like that, the more stuff you can jam in there, the more tables and fireplaces and just scatter terrain.
Yeah, it makes a big difference for like interacting. Like without seeing the table, you're not going to think of, well, I flip the table over and hide behind it, use this cover.
Yeah, exactly. And I was playing, all creepy crypt type music through the app, just trying to set the atmosphere of like you're in this old complex that nobody's been in a long time.
Defiled ground, zombies, the works of it.
Yeah. So that was pretty much that. And eventually they found a hidden doorway. I pretty much use passive perception to do this, which I don't do a lot, but I did in this sense, and I guess it was a little way for me to kind of railroad the party a little bit in a way. Okay. Because I was like, okay, Robin has a super high perception, like there's 16, 17, yeah. And I'm like, okay, we've been kind of running this storyline now for like 5-6 sessions, so I'm going to kind of make sure that they find this path. Yeah. So, which I don't usually do. I kind of don't like using passive perception in D&D. I don't know. I just find it takes away from the fun of everything. Because if you look at these books, it'd be like anybody with passive perception of 14 sees a trap. I'm like, everybody got a passive perception of 14. Yeah. So, I don't like to use it, but sometimes I do. So anyways, they went through a series of an underground complex. And for this one, I use your normal dry erase mat.
Yeah.
And I put it on the table. Everybody had a pencil or a pen, a dry erase marker.
Yeah.
I'll get it right to once.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, guys, we're going to do it theater to mind. I'm going to tell you north, west, south, and east.
Oh my God, that was so... Nobody in our group apparently ever went to Boy Scouts because they're like, this is north. They're like, no, that's north. No, that's north. No, this is north.
So that took 10 minutes to straighten out.
Yeah.
So once they found north, we pretty much described it as they were walking through. And a tip that I like to give is anytime you're doing like really complex dungeon crawls that are nothing but tunnels going everywhere, it's hard to build that out 3D.
Yes.
For two reasons. One, because it'll slow the progress of walking through the hallways down.
And we have a bad habit of seeing room, go to room.
See the room, go to room.
If there's any black areas on the map, we must explore them.
Which is definitely a downside of building a full set. Is if you see like a piece of paper over a room, you're like...
We're going to
that room, and you end up clearing every single room, which you know
it turns what's supposed to be a certain style of dungeon crawl into a Diablo style.
It do, yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So this entire complex was just filled with trap after trap after trap after trap, which was set forth in the module, and I really like that because we were doing the rogue's backstory. And of course, one of her main things is like picking locks and disarming traps. So I was like, well, that's good. It's full of traps. So it didn't really work out that way, though. I don't think there was a whole lot of traps disarmed.
No, I set them all off in my water elemental form. I found a trap. I was like, I rolled a high enough perception check to find out there was a trap. Found it was a false door. I got mad at the door, punched the door, and set the trap off. I was just like, well, what was the point of passing the checks?
So, and this was another like extremely lucky series of events. They pretty much went the ideal route, right straight to like where they had to go, which was this false treasure room, and it was full of illusionary magics. But the bard cast detect magic, and everything was pinging in the room. So I think that really set you guys off not to touch anything.
Yeah,
because there was a jade vampire statue.
That we did not trust, so we attacked it.
No, and some of that might have been coming from our previous campaign, where that...
In the campaign I ran, where the bard had made a pact deal with the Lord Timoshin from Tales from the Yawning Portal, and there was an undead vampire in the room, and they all just dumped oil all on the casket, lit it on fire. I didn't get the chance to run a vampire that day.
And I think it was payback because I didn't either. Everybody just held actions and boom, 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 just flattened this thing within like 1 or 2 rounds. I did get a curse or 2 off with him and a couple of bites, but he got whooped. And we used minis for this.
Yeah, that part we did. Yeah.
We did use minis for this on the drawed out map. But then through the hustle and the bustle, again, I used passive perception, and you guys found the other secret door, which led to the actual treasure room itself, where the phylactery was hidden.
Yeah.
And inside of there was a crystalline minotaur, which I was like super excited to run.
This poor minotaur.
Oh man, this poor minotaur. And I thought it was going to be like this big epic fight in there, but basically what happened was somebody casted Mage Hand and sent it into the room.
Yeah, and then the Minotaur came in, and he took his axe and cleaved it in half.
As soon as it tried to grab the phylactery.
So what the rogue ended up doing, he's a swashbuckler, came in and panached this this Minotaur. So he was focused on the rogue. And then the monk ran in, and just as he was about to grab the phylactery, he clicked his immovable rod, grabbed it, swung around it, carried his momentum, and booked it out of the room. And because the Minotaur was panached, he couldn't hit him.
Yeah. And then he just left the room, and everybody started to run for it and book it when the Minotaur gave chase. And he didn't care about free strikes. He was just going like straight out there. And as soon as he did, the Warlock hit him with a ham shank, which is this random... magic item that was made for a Halloween game that we played way back last year, where basically is a rubber ham shank, and when you hit it, it does a little bit of bludgeoning damage, but casts
Tash's hideous laughter on it.
So wham, the Minotaur goes down, and like for the next 4 rounds,
He could not make a save.
Could not make a save. Could not get up. So what I was trying to do with the treasure room is I was trying to have your like traditional boss fight, which was this like closed off room, sort of like kill box situation. I was going to have everybody go in there and just get mobbed by this Minotaur, and maybe something else in there too. And the idea here was to build a really small little room, so that when you went into it, there was like nowhere really to go, and this big Minotaur was just going to be like hitting everybody. That was the idea. It just went totally at the window.
Yeah, it went upside down on you quick. There was only 2 people that... No, I don't even think Robin went in the room.
Nobody went in the room.
Royal did. Royal did when he grabbed the flag, and he was the only one who went inside the room.
And he was in and out in one turn with dash and step of the wind, and he was just all that stuff. He was gone.
Yeah.
And then I used... What I decided to do was have everything collapse and cave in.
As soon as we destroyed the phylactery.
Yeah, and I took a little bit of advice from Matt Colville here, and I just had a bunch of series of ability checks as you guys were running.
As the walls were collapsing down
and caving in.
Yeah.
So basically, I wanted to have everything caving in and collapsing, so every time somebody would come up, I would make them roll a dexterity saving throw. And to avoid either a floor falling down or a wall caving in, or something like that, or the roof collapsing, and they were all like weaving and ducking, and people were getting hit by boulders, and one of the things I decided to have happen was one of the traps was an acid pit.
Yeah.
So when it was all kind of collapsing in, I had like the acid pit come up in a cloud and just come down through in dust storm and hit everybody in the hallway, and I made everybody roll con saves and give them the damage just like the trap had said. So like I, as a DM, I was intent on doing damage on the way out.
Yeah.
Pretty much. One way or another, somebody was taking a few licks here because I wanted the sense of, oh shit, this is coming down on us.
Yeah, and it definitely had that feel. Our bard got pinned, and it was like 3 rounds before we ended up getting him out because he failed 2 checks to get him out. I ended up having to drop my water elemental form, which was big in the next session. Mm-hmm. And I casted polymorph on him to turn him into a mouse and put him in my hand to run out.
Yes. That's right. Yeah. And you were flying out the door and you got hit by a falling boulder and dropped the spell.
I pretty much picked him up, turned him into a mouse, turned the corner, got hit in the head with a boulder. Lost concentration, he just fell flat on the floor, and I left him.
So, it was fun. So the idea, guys, if you're doing a situation like that where you want to have stuff happen really fast, and you don't necessarily want everybody to like kind of walk it out with a mini, just start to talk really fast and say everything is coming down, what do you do, and put the pressure on the party.
It definitely it gives that like anxious what's happening kind of feeling.
And sometimes to get them running, because sometimes it's hard to get a party to run, I'm kind of like the walls is coming down, you got to take off running, it's falling down right on top of you, and then the players of course responds like, oh shit, like it's coming down, everything is coming down, and then it sets the tone for you to like, this is a run encounter, which you can find some pretty cool rules in the D&D, the DMG.
Yeah.
There's some run rules in there, like if you were to do that, but it's hard to get a party to run.
Yeah, because not everyone will agree to take off running.
No. So as a DM, if you want to get them to run, it's kind of talk really fast, set the tone, and kind of maybe, I want to say take their agency, but just for a moment. Like, you start running because you just got missed by a pillar that fell. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of like kicks the player into like, okay.
Yeah, it's the flight mode activates.
Yeah. So guys, that was pretty much that encounter. Some takeaways here. You can see you used multiple different types of maps. It doesn't really matter what type of map you use, but we had 3 distinct fields here with 3 distinct maps, which was a lot of fun. There was paper map, there was a 3D printed map, and there was a hand-drawn map.
Yeah.
The hand-drawn map was nice because the players got that sense of exploring. So if you want to do like an exploring type, use the hand-drawn maps and let the players draw them as they're exploring. It gives that sense of
it also gives you a sense that you're in a place you don't know.
Yeah, I do, right? Where if you got the 3D map there, you can see the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, sometimes I'll bring in piece by piece, but
and as players, it's hard to separate that from what your character knows. If you can physically see it, you're like, oh, what's in that room?
Yeah, you can't help it. Like,
you got to go to that room.
Yeah, and Minis, if you want to. Minis are always great, but if you don't have them, you can do cutout minis, paper minis.
I've done a whole last campaign we did was with paper minis.
Yeah, there's times when we don't have minis and we just proxy something, this or that.
Theater of the Mind works too.
Theater of the Mind for the skeleton hordes was a lot of fun. I was kind of thinking Army of Darkness. I don't know if you saw that movie, but Bruce Campbell, when all the skeletons were just mobbing them, but that's kind of the sense that I had in my mind when we were playing that. So yeah, guys, I hope this video was entertaining to you and you got a few ideas if you were going to run some sort of crawls like this, or maybe even if you were going to run this particular module. We're going to have a few more of these videos in the future, so stick around. Hit that subscribe button. It means a lot to us small YouTubers trying to get our content out there for you guys. Hit the like button.
Yeah, and until next time, guys.
Take care.
See ya.